We begin our report with the Republican presidential race. After a staccato start, the contest is moving to the stage where a steady stream of candidates cross the streets and tarmacs of the early nominating states. Former President Donald Trump is in Iowa, one of a few key states he failed to win in the 2016 campaign, following closely after the man following him in the polls, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who just spent 2 days in Iowa, but who Thursday was in New Hampshire. But it was the current president's trip during the Air Force Academy graduation ceremony that Donald Trump talked to Iowa voters about. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe reports from Des Moines.
Well, I hope he wasn't hurt. I hope he wasn't hurt.
Former President Donald Trump expressed concern when told of his successor's fall and referenced his own experience after a commencement at West Point in 2020.
You got to be careful about that because you don't want that, even if you have to tiptoe down a ramp.
But he couldn't resist taking a shot at his once and possibly future opponent.
That's a bad place to fall when you're making, I think it was the Air Force Academy, right? He's making, that's not inspiring. Go.
Trump's comments came as he and his top GOP primary rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, each campaigned in early voting states, taking swings at each other throughout the day.
Ron, as I call him, Ron DeSanctimonious for reasons.
The former president hammered DeSantis for touting his ability to serve 2 terms.
We will work incredibly hard day after day for 2 terms over 8-year period to deliver results.
I've been watching DeSantis go out and say, I've got 8 years. It's going to be 8 years. Let me tell you something. Right there, you should vote against him. It'll take me 6 months to have it totally the way it was.
DeSantis responded later during his 4-stop tour of New Hampshire with wife Casey.
Why didn't he do it his first 4 years?
The Florida governor didn't explicitly attack the former president during his formal remarks, instead criticizing President Biden for pushing the Democratic Party to drop New Hampshire as its first primary.
I think what he's been doing with the Democrats is wrong, and I'm glad the Republicans are holding the line and are committed to New Hampshire.
But on his second full day of campaigning, DeSantis got noticeably irritated during this exchange with a reporter.
Governor, how come you're not taking questions from voters? Not coming up to me, talking to me. What are you talking about? I'm not here working with people. Are you blind? What? Are you blind? I'm not blind. Okay, so people are coming up to me, talking to me, whatever they want to talk to me about.
Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Des Moines, Iowa. Ed, so there's a lot of this going on. Give us some sense of what, when Ron DeSantis, he's offered a number of direct and indirect contrasts to the current frontrunner, the former president. What of all of that strikes you?
The fact that he's responding in kind and, willing to point out some of the foibles of the former president's past record. This whole, I can do and remake Washington over 8 years, which drew Trump in to say, I could do it in 5 or 6 months, which in turn DeSantis turns around and says, well, what were you doing for those 4 years you had in office? I think many who are not fans of the former president are used to seeing the president end up in give and takes and mano-a-mano situations with critics. It's just that they're rarely Republicans who, don't have an issue with taking him on. DeSantis, so far at least, has demonstrated a willingness and almost an annoyance with it. He did an interview with a radio show in New Hampshire tonight where he called the president's reaction an ongoing feud and the comments he's been making juvenile, suggesting that, that's a good reason why he lost all those voters in 2020 that robbed Republicans in the White House. Why would you want to go back to that? That compelling argument, that argument right there might be compelling enough to Republicans who, liked what he did, appreciated that he took care of the economy and was tough on foreign policy and put conservatives on the court, but are sick and tired of the baggage. We're just going to have to wait and see how voters here in New Hampshire and elsewhere assess that now that they've got options.
Yeah. And what are you hearing that you didn't expect, either from candidates or voters out there?
Well, first, I am struck by how quickly Trump is paying such careful attention to everything DeSantis is saying. Elements of, from pronouncing his name to suggestions about what he could do to reshape Washington and how long it would take him to do it. He's listening to everything. But what I'm also struck by is you hear and see the Trump supporters who are there with him, that 30 to 40% of the Republican electorate. Okay, they're there. But I'm not seeing any signs of real excitement or growth potential there necessarily for the former president. So what do any of these other guys do to capture that universe, win them over here in Iowa, and propel them into New Hampshire and beyond?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. In 2016, this was not a good state for the former President Trump. He came in second to Ted Cruz and then almost came in third with Marco Rubio coming close behind him. What does it look like now? I mean, you and I know what a big, thunderous Trump rally looks like. What was it like there?
There was none of that today at all. He held 3 closed-door or more private events where just a few dozen people showed up. This morning it was a group of conservative activists. At lunchtime it was a bunch of ministers, some of whom were at the DeSantis kickoff event Tuesday night, so they're just playing the field and happy to take the meeting. And the press isn't allowed in, and they're nowhere near an arena that can hold thousands of people. Remember, he was supposed to be here a few weeks ago for a rally on a Saturday night that he canceled because of a tornado watch, not an actual tornado. DeSantis called that out this week and said, you know, I showed up at that same area of Des Moines and the weather was fine. So there's some here who are saying, where is that 2016, 2020 rally spirit of the Trump campaign? Is he even going to bother in this state, knowing that he's vulnerable, knowing that those evangelical, socially conservative, Christian Republican voters that rejected him in 2016 may be no more likely to support him this time, given his own personal and legal baggage that he faces and the political baggage and cost it could mean for Republicans nationwide.
And it'll be fascinating to see if he listens to the advisors who say what you have to do in Iowa is do things small, pay them the respect in the little rooms to show that you're not just a big arena style candidate. Well, we'll soon see. Ed O'Keefe, thanks so much.